Well, welcome everyone. Don't know if you were with us during that wonderful technological hiccup, but if you've been doing anything during Corona, you know there's hiccups. And so we just breathe right through hiccups and make our way through. And maybe you heard me start this, but we are welcoming you to the Reconciling Yourself part of this day, reconciling your IQ, your EQ, and your GQ, and the Harmony Triads. And I use my dad as an exemplar here. My dad he was the first love of my life. And when I learned the Enneagram, I couldn't figure out if he was a 5 because my dad was a beautiful reader. In fact, if you went to his home and you talked about any subject, he'd pull a book off the shelf and open it up and take you to a paragraph that helped you understand life and gave you a way to think for yourself. And then his mother used to say that, you know, he was no help to my grandpa in the garage because he always had his head in a book. And I thought, well, maybe he's a 5. And then because he was the oldest of 6 and his mother died when the children were young and he became the caretaker and the helper and the lover while his dad was working, and then later housing many of his siblings in his own home and his own 6 children while his wife was sick, he made the best pasta, the most garlicky, full of burgundy red sauce you've ever had, and would sing L'Odonna Mobile while he was singing, you know, and cooking and hugging the people that came next to him and sometimes pulling you on his lap and letting you know that you were loved, maybe a 2. And then as I watched him in the 60s and we had death threats because he walked with Dr. King and sat on the Archbishop's Council for Race Relations. And even though there were many stories of it being very dangerous for him and for our family, he would tell us the world is a lot bigger than your own home. And so I felt the 8 energy of that leader. I felt the 8 energy of that strong presence that helped us know that justice was on the way in a healthy way. And so I saw his Enneagram Harmony Triad, 2, 5, and 8. And maybe you've never worked with Harmony Triads at all. You're working with the classic Enneagram, awesome. All models are incomplete and some are useful for transformation. So in 2009, I was with Dr. David Daniels, and Dr. Daniels was actually teaching on conflict management with Kurt Mitschka. It was a brilliant seminar, and at the end, he threw up this diagram of the Harmony Triad model. And he said, pay attention because you're gonna learn a lot more about this. Even though he had been teaching the classic inner triangle with the hexagonal arrows and wing theories, he said, pay attention because something is emerging. And that was in 2009. I was in his course. He said this, he said, over the years, I have found that every type 2 has a secret connection to type 5, where they pull back and restore and conserve energy and reflect mentally, and so can be giving with heartfelt generosity. They just want to know for how long, right? And you can read that article on drdaviddaniels.com. He talks about 4s that have times of incredible lightness of being as they awaken and begin to focus more on the positives, discovering the positives have always been there, like a 7. Furthermore, all of us know the basic triad of 3, 6, 9. There is a lot of movement between these types in the triad, with each of the types becoming a resource. And when those and the other 2 equilateral triangles become aware, they too can experience the flow of resourceful movement. And he said this, the Enneagram of Harmony Triads are the key to development. So Harmony Triads, what are they? Well, the classic 3, 6, 9 in the center and 2, 5, 8 and 147. And you can always carry a triangle in your pocket. If you're like me, I many times became confused, had to think too hard about which arrow, is it moving towards integration or disintegration? But look at this. All you need is a triangle. And so for those of us that are mathematically challenged, it becomes really delightful. I learned originally the classic Enneagram model under D and Pat Aspel. And so that was a great gift to learn about that hexagonal feature. Later, I learned from Dr. Wagner at Enneagram Spectrum, and he gave us these wonderful names all the way around the circle that gave us a way to see. And maybe you would say there are way too many names for each Enneagram type, but they are just signposts to lead us to the person who is present in the room with us. So don't get caught up in names, but let the name be a signpost to lead you to the person in the room to be present to. So I teach the Enneagram Harmony Triads. And the Harmony Triad model has become a way for me to create ways for people to be present to presence, their IQ, their EQ, and their GQ, gut intelligence. So you may have thought that was a magazine. Today, let that go. It's the body center. It's the body intelligence. So GQ, EQ, emotional intelligence, IQ, your intellectual intelligence. And in 2012, I wrote this little book called Motions of the Soul, the Enneagram, and utilized the work of an old saint named Ignatius, who I fondly call Iggy, so that we can all think of him in modern terms. And this was the movement of consolation and desolation, like what moves you toward hope? What moves you toward love? That's consolation. What moves you away from hope? What moves you away from love? That's desolation. And the Enneagram, the classic Enneagram, the process Enneagram, is really a wonderful diagnostic tool. It gives us ways to see what is, right? This reality of, oh my gosh, when on my worst day, or what the ancients used to call when your noonday demon shows up. Like in the morning, you thought you were going to be awesome all day long, and then noon shows up, and there you are, moving to your disintegration, your stress point, however you want to put it. And then you start to feel guilty or shamed or afraid, depending on where you land in the Enneagram. But I see the incomplete model of the Harmony Triad as a helpful way for people to move toward transformation, to be whole, to be centered, because when we have this lovely triangle, there is a center to us that can actually bring us to health and wholeness. So I came up with this little alliteration, and everything that is on my PowerPoints, you can find in any of our books, Motions of the Soul, or the newer book, which we'll get to in a minute. But this beautiful way to say, okay, I know that if I am positioning or perfectionizing, I'm not present. I'm not present to hope. I'm not present to love. I'm standing on my edge, right? So ones, when they're on their edge and not harmonized, are not accessing the center of their worth. And that goes for every one of the types. So you'll look at here with twos, when they are prideful or people-pleasing, they're not centered. They're on their edge. They're on the edge of the Enneagram instead of centered and accessing. Threes, when they're performing and pragmatizing, probably not a word, but I like it, they are not centered and accessing what could come from all three centers of intelligence, IQ, EQ, and GQ. Fours, when they're pouting or they're personalizing, not centered. Fives, when they're pontificating, right? Or they're prognosticating, they are not centered. When sixes are paranoid or pledging, like I pledge allegiance to either my phobia or to the people who are the voice that tells me what to do, they're not centered. When 7s are playing or preoccupied, they're not 7. When 8s are prosecuting or powering up, they're not centered. When 9s are powering down or procrastinating, they're not centered, they're on their edge. So you can see it in this beautiful presence and non-presence kind of way of looking at the Enneagram. When you're on your edge, you can see, the places we get trapped. And when you're centered, you're able to access more than you had when you're on your edge. Have you ever said to yourself, I feel beside myself, right? Whenever you've said that, you might say, oh, I guess I'm not centered. Wait a minute, I can breathe. I can receive my IQ, my EQ, my GQ. We have some practices to help you do that. When we realize, oh my gosh, I am pushing my agenda. I am playing God. I'm not reflecting the Imago Dei, right? And so we want to learn how to reflect this beautiful Trinitarian picture of deference. So you may be aware of the beautiful icon, Andrei Rublev, and the way that each of these characters of the Godhead, or these images of the Godhead, or these ways of seeing God, and there is much more to God than this. Look at the hundreds of names for God in my sacred text, the scripture. Or go out and look at the first Bible in creation and consider the lilies of the field or the ant, or look at the stars, right? God is making God's self known. And when we think of the Trinity, there is this beautiful deference. And when Dr. Daniels put that diagram up of the harmony, I immediately thought Trinity, because I was raised as a Catholic girl, and then I went to Assembly of God Bible College, then started studying in seminary with evangelicals, and now I hang out with everybody, and I'm an ecumenical potpourri. And what I discovered is that it's about this beautiful movement of God in us when we can defer. And you actually see this all throughout what the scriptures, the Bible, this sacred text gives us a way to know the Great Commission. And this is a model, so it can be incomplete, come from the head. Maybe this father, this loving father, this loving parent. If the word father is disturbing to you, just let this loving parent that actually says, go and teach systems and ways for people to have handles to know the love of God. And even this idea of baptizing them, let the healing waters come into their life so they know they're loved, right? And then you have the Son, the Sacred Heart of Jesus, this beautiful, the great commandment: love God with all your heart and your mind and your strength, right? And love your neighbor as yourself. And then we have the beautiful gut. And in my years with the Pentecostal people, they always talked about feeling something instinctually, like knowing something in your gut, that you know it in your bones. It's like fire shut up in my bones, right? I just knew in my knower that there's this body had intelligence, that even some people would say, I had goosebumps, or my heart started pounding, and I knew God was saying something to me, like, whom shall I send? Who will go for us? And that is the gut triad, and maybe a way to see the Holy Ghost or the Holy Spirit. But all of this is the thread of love God with all your mind, your heart, and your strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And so just breathe that in for a minute, and maybe even think about that picture that I put up at the very beginning. And I want you to consider a person that has shown you harmony, that they weren't stuck in just their gut reactions or head reactions or instinctual reactions. And for a minute, just breathe in, just for about 15 seconds, the goodness of a person that you've known in your life that has harmony. Now, that was not trapped in type or automatic responses, but someone who was able to engage their intellect in a way that helped you feel loved and brought about good action in the world. That's what we're talking about. We provide a 4-day training where we teach the Harmony Triad model, and then people write an autobiography based on their Harmony Triad. And in that, we took stories from people in our training, and with our co-authors, Adele and Doug Calhoun, my husband Scott Loughrige, and we wrote about each of the styles from the narrative tradition, people telling their own story and how they may have missed harmony in their lives and how they might open to harmony. Dr. Wagner said this in the foreword to our book. He said, people ask, now that I know my type, what do I do with it or myself? After reading the Enneagram with harmony and spiritual practices, you will know. And that I have to tell you from a 5, because Doug is a gut person, Scott is a gut person, I am a heart person, Adele's a heart person. We needed a head person to write the foreword so that we knew we were competent. So thanks be to God. So from this book, you'll have ways that we start to unpack. Some of us react instinctively, and we know in our gut whether we like someone or not. We rely on these instinctual feelings and concerns for others. Oops, where'd that go? I'm sorry. And so we trust our gut more than anything else. We know whether to jump in or act out, right? We know in our bones. It's like, I just have a gut feeling about this, and I know this is what I'm gonna do. Or in the case of the 9, not do, right? Then you have these beautiful heart people, these wonderful ones that trust heart connection more than anything else. And what they would say is they rely on feelings and concerns to guide them. Like, what do you need? What do you need now? I mean, don't ask how I am. I'm asking, how are you? In fact, how are you right now? How are you? Or actually tell me how I am right now. How am I doing? Could you tell me? Help me, Lori, help me. And so the beautiful thing about these heart people is they know in their heart, right? They know the heart has reason not knows not of, but they might dismiss their reactions, gut reactions as not me, and distrust the intellect. And then there's the head intelligence. Some of us move to our head and dismiss our heart, and love becomes a concept. And when asked a feeling question, we consult our head, right? We think we feel, look at pros and cons, dismiss heart people as lightweights maybe, right? Or the instinctual people as reactionary. So what we know, friends, is that we all have an automatic way of being in the world, but there is a way to be centered and practice centering. Trust me, you're not going to get centered and be done. As my friend Orion Tricky says, it's a Corona coaster. So it's a lot of fun during a pandemic because you get everybody's Enneagram slip is showing, right? Your automatic responses are showing. But here's what's more true. And Nelson Mandela said it. Human beings can't bear the burden of their own inherent greatness. See, we might think that, okay, I have to, know things with my EQ, or I only know if I actually know it and can document it and give you the data with my IQ, or I only know it if it's like yes, no, right, wrong, in, out, right? As a GQ person, gut instinct. But the truth is, it's only because we dismiss things because we don't realize our inherent greatness. Made in God's image, head, heart, and gut, parent, son, spirit, right? Father saying that, we can be taught, and Sacred Heart saying, go love, and, gut reaction saying, go and do. But transformation, friends, depends on intention and attention. There is no way that we can just do it, right? And as a 3, I tried that until I was 40 years old and ended up diagnosed with MS and realized I was going to have to rest in order to recover my health. which really meant I had to go to my 9 from the 3. And then I also had to let in the 6 to start to ask me really good clarifying questions like, Claire, is that yours to do, or is that about your ego? Is this about the good of the team, right? Or is this that you feel like in order to be worthy, you better show up with that stuff? So I began to write with these, what I call breath prayers or head, heart, gut, motion mantras. And that's the title of each of the books in both Motions of the Soul and Spiritual Rhythms for the Enneagram that we co-authored with the Calhouns. And what we did was we took all 3 centers and made a breath prayer or a head, heart, gut, motion mantra, a way to remember, to bring it back. Like sometimes we dismembered parts of ourselves. And so we don't even realize that, you know, justice from the gut is contemplative love. Justice is contemplative love. Accessing all 3 centers of intelligence, even attaching it to breath, in order to regulate those kind of instincts and feelings and data that could be, you know, not enough on their own, but together they bring great harmony. So growth and integration has everything to do with engaging these centers, holding all things loosely like a 5, right? And then engaging the heart of a 2 with empathy and compassion. Super helpful. We do all kinds of practices with that using heart math and biofocusing and somatic experience and imaginative prayer. Lots of spirituality taught to us in modernity and the ancient times with St. Ignatius and many others of the great people that we have learned from. For the 9s, they can have this beautiful breath prayer, right? They can have a beautiful breath prayer. They can breathe peace from the gut, effects, team, peace, effects, team, to move out of inaction, to realize there's an effect on the world, an imprint for the sake of a whole group of people that you're connected to, asking which ones am I connected to? And I don't have to get out of the way for everybody, but peace affects team. Engaging, and so we go through these kinds of practices that help people discover that they can engage the life-giving heart of the 3 with production and efficacy and confidence. And they can engage the brilliant intellect of the 6 with these clarifying questions and loyalty and insight. Such a gift. It's centered. The 1s, oh my goodness, are wonderful. The inherent greatness of the 1s, looking at a head, heart, gut motion mantra, goodness creates joy. And watching that kind of breath prayer or mantra as you're walking into a board meeting that can actually take you off your edge as a 1, like saying it needs to be good or bad, right or wrong, right? We're in, we're out. They're right, they're wrong. And what a gift to engage that kind of, when I talk about breath prayer, I love to say it's matching your biology with your theology. Like bringing your breath and your ideas about what the imago Dei is, the image of God, into your breathing, your biology. And then we have the life-giving gifts, being connected with fun and optimism as a 7 and engaging the heart of the 4, right? This creative, gorgeous, willing to go into the depths of difficulty with beauty. And that is healthy and centered. And then we have the 2, and the 2 has this beautiful love, contemplates, then decides gift. They also then can engage and start to learn about the decisive, confident, directive action of the 8, and they can also become observant and detached and wise. You know, we realize that love, when it's overdone, can become codependent and martyr-like. But when it is engaged with the gift of detachment from the 5 and that kind of action with the 8's gorgeous. The 3's, this beautiful, effective, Like, and some people think effective is disconnected from heart people. And I just want to say to you, this heart person would say, effect for me is about connecting with you. Effect for me is about, if I leave you, will you have known that I left some good gift for you that mattered? And so maybe that's my 4-wing, maybe that's going to 6, I don't know, but that's what effect means for me. And so effective, right? Effective. And then loyalty. Like, what's loyal? Not just effective for me to say I left an imprint on you, but what's loyal for the team? And then that harmonizes my gut. And I can be at peace, not just pushing my own agenda. I can actually practice self-mute for myself, right? That's actually one of our practices in the book. Self-mute for 3s, right? Go up to your head and ask, is this good for all or just for me? And so it's beautiful, the 9 and the 6, what they offer, the 3. The 4, you can take a look, and I'll have these slides available, or you can, read more about it in the books. But when we look at the 4 and we see originality, like this beautiful creative self joyfully reforms, right? It's giving you this wonderful movement. And we'll talk more about the other ways it helps us move toward, away, and against that are super healthy. Good breath prayer. And then engaging in the life-giving instincts of the 1, objectivity, stability, self-discipline, and then engage in the life-giving intellect of the 7 with some optimism, so you're not down in the slough, always in the difficulty, right? It's beautiful. And then we have the wonderful 5. And these 5s, when they are practicing harmony, they actually look at wisdom, lovingly directs, right? Wisdom, all that information, lovingly, like, how do I love my neighbor? Like this wisdom is for the sake of others. And I tell Dr. Wagner he's a great exemplar of a 5, because he gives away so much. If you've ever taken his training, you come out of there with like 10 years of research, and it's at your fingertips, and you're able to do some really good learning. But that heart is there, the generosity. He doesn't say, like, this is all my information, it's all going to die with me. It's going to be for the sake of others. And then, of course, giving it and doing it, this confident action and leadership and direct communication. That's a healthy, integrated 5. So they move to this, wonderful harmony when they're growing and integrating and harmonizing. And then our 6s, when they're praying beautiful prayers like faithfulness, or whatever other word you want to use for the 6. In fact, we actually teach people how to create their own head, heart, gut, motion mantra or breath prayer, because these are just a gateway. They're only words to help you find your words. So faithfulness produces peace. I have a 6 in the room that has her own, and I know that the way that you find integrating your IQ, your EQ, and your GQ will get you out of being stuck on your way into a conversation with a friend, or with your staff, or with your boss. And you can integrate this wonderful peace and harmony of the 9, and this production and efficacy and confidence, right? This wonderful gift of 9 and 3, peace and harmony, production and efficacy. So how you doing? How you doing? Have you finding yourself here yet? Let's go to 7. Joy is deeply stable. Here's a way, a head, heart, gut, motion mantra. It is a breath prayer, attaching your theology and your biology to say joy, adventure is deeply stable, right? It's all there. Joy is deeply stable. I can access all 3 centers of intelligence here. And when we are present, and we could talk a whole lot more about this if I actually were in a one-on-one with you, but the reality is it takes time. Transformation depends on intention and attention, right? Where your attention goes, energy will follow, right? So it is all about creating a new little set of happy neurons that can fire together and wire together so that we have a new way of being in the world and not just stuck in our type. So engaging this beautiful life-giving instincts of being principled and disciplined and organized and ethical with the gorgeous heart of the four, reflective and authentic, and this great gift of being willing to enter into difficulty, which a seven may never be able to imagine if they're not in harmony, right? So we just basically say it this way. Without spiritual rhythms that integrate broken and dismissed parts of ourselves, we play one string of the instrument that is us instead of the full chord. One string. You ever hear that? Bing, 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 right? But when you have harmony, it gives a fullness and a richness that brings the world, you know, what is so missing in this time. What is so missing? Oh God, how we need harmony. Oh God, gather us to be with you in a way that we pay attention to IQ and EQ and GQ and how we can continue to move forward. And so I'm going to ask Lori about how many minutes do I have so I know when to stop and go to the panel. So another what? Okay, let me know when you know. So here's a great quote from our beautiful John O'Donohue. Don't know if you read him, but the wildness of the invisible world is nameless. It has no name. At first step towards reawakening respect for your inner life may be to become aware of the private collage of dead names you have for your inner life. Often the experience of wilderness can return us to the nameless wild within. Sometime go away to a wild place on your own. Leave your name in the grid of intentions and projects and images which you mark you out as citizen Z or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Leave it all and let yourself just slip back into the rhythms of your own intimate wildness. Your own intimate wildness. Can you imagine if there was this inner wildness in you that you could reintegrate? I don't even know if you believe it's true yet, but maybe in this next section you will, because I'm going to show you something about what we call embracing. Wholeness is a brokenness embraced and thereby healed. Can you imagine people that in this world right now are so broken and they're so stuck in their type that they're bringing brokenness to the world? As Father Rohr says, if you do not transform your wounds, you will transmit them, right? It's so true. Places I have not transformed, I know I'm still transmitting my own woundedness. And when I can allow myself to embrace all that is me, right? The head, the heart, the gut, and all that comes with it, the good, the bad, and the ugly, I am able to bring my whole self, my holy self, my centered self, my present self, my being present to presence, present to you because I'm already present to myself. And that comes with intention, bringing intention to the attention that I need harmony, right? So some time ago, when I was on the board back in the day with Dr. Wagner and his beautiful wife, Bernie, and one of our friends, I know I'm not going to remember who brought it, but it was beautiful. They started to talk to us about dismissed soul child, that Sandra Maitre, the work that Sandra Maitre had done. And that's a brilliant model. You might want to check that out. But what started to percolate in me again is, I bet you can't guess, harmony. And so I began to look at the dismissed childlike self. and to say, okay, I'm going to look at this first. If I'm an 8, I wonder if that within, if you can put that next slide up, Ryan, within every passionate and gutsy 8, there is a tender, caring 2 who wants to connect with others and wonders if your big emotions exclude you from love. Or maybe you've dismissed, if you're an 8, the little 5. Within every out there 8 is a private little 5 who is detached and unwilling to share your time and energy with others. So wonder about that if you're an 8. Wonder about that. Wonder if that's true, if maybe the 2, or the 5 were not welcome in your home. Like, we don't do emotions here. Or, no, you're not reading again. You need to get out and work in the farm. So I don't know what your home life was like, but if Father Rohr is right, maybe we're about a third nature, about a third nurture, and about a third free will. So a third nature, God did it to you. A third nurture, your parents did it to you. And a third free will, what you decided to do with all of that, right? So maybe you let go of the little 2 or the little 5 if you're an 8. If you're a 9, I wonder if you let go of the 3. Within every self-effacing, cooperative 9 is an ambitious, successful, forward-moving 3 who wants to shine and direct and be recognized for your connections and your leadership and your productivity. Or maybe if it's not the little 3 that you rejected or dismissed, or maybe even the word better for you might be undernourished. That you undernourished that 3 part of you, or maybe you undernourished or dismissed the 6. Beneath every calm, collected, peaceful 9 is a fearful, anxious, and doubting 6 who doesn't trust your inner authority and is looking for a way to be safe in a dangerous world. So just think about that for a minute. If you are this 9, did you dismiss or undernourish your heart or your head? Maybe. And if you're a 1, within every dutiful and principled 1 is an adventurous, distracted, and imaginative 7 who doesn't want to face discomfort and struggles while wanting more and more of what makes for a good life. So that 1 may have put off the 7 because it wasn't okay in your house. Or maybe you got applauded more for being a good little boy or a good little girl. Or maybe it was the undernourished 4. In every perfectionistic, rule-following 1 is a deep, melancholic, insightful 4 who wants to connect to others but does not sense you are special enough. So I just want to ask you, if you're a 1, what might that be? Is it possible that you may have undernourished or dismissed either your heart or your head? And maybe one of them is more alive, the other one is not, or maybe both of them have been dismissed or undernourished and you've really been on your edge, overplaying your hand. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take you through the rest of these slides in silence. I'm going to let you read them. And I'll give an appropriate amount of reading time, and you can just notice for yourself and just breathe, okay? Just breathe and allow yourself to wonder. You don't have to fix anything right now. Gurdjieff would say, don't even try to fix anything right now. The point is just to be aware of it, because when you're aware of your awareness, friends, when you have attention, you will begin to move your energy toward that. And rather than trying to make it work and doubling down with our shadow side, or our unresourceful behaviors, we can actually possibly open up to more just because we're aware, and then we're open. We're open and available. So I'm gonna, as I go through these slides, I'm going to just invite you to breathe for a minute, feel your feet on the floor, breathe into your heart space. and then maybe down even a little further into your belly. And take some cleansing breaths here as we go through the rest of these slides. So I don't know if you'd like to even just put in the chat bar if any of those things are resonating with you, if you want to wonder more about it, and just let us know. You know, how is that showing up for you? Is it possible that you may have dismissed or undernourished either your IQ, your EQ, or your GQ? And when we are aware of our awareness, we can bring intention to that attention. Some of the ways that I do that is utilizing the wonderful work of St. Ignatius Loyola. I take a look at what Ginger teaches on these trios of competency, intensity, and optimism, what Karen Horney teaches in Toward, Away, and Against. And it's amazing because you can have every one of those energies in your harmony triad if you're in harmony. You can be competent, intense, right? You can be competent, intense, and optimistic. You can move toward when you need to, you can move away when you need to, and you can move against when you need to in harmony. So I work with people to develop head, heart, gut motion mantras and breath prayers and practices, and teaching them how to do nightly examines, right, to access all three centers of intelligence. I teach them a discernment practice that gives them these relational styles, instinctual styles, you know, of thinking, acting, and feeling. And that way we can identify what is ours to do in the world when we've engaged all three centers of intelligence, discernment, right? So I want to bring in some friends of mine that have been learning with me how to do things like stop, see, triggers, open, and come to presence, or flow, free, loving, open, and welcoming. I've taught them through Visio Divina, where we look at exemplars around each of the types, and we say, what am I resisting? What am I resonating with? And is it because someone was either in harmony, like someone like Mother Teresa, who the 258 in her was beautiful, and not saying that these people are that style, but they could be. It's a way to wonder. Or the ones we're resisting, is it because they were locked in their 8 energy and they were bullies? No names at this time in the chat bar, please. So, right, so we teach that, and we, you know, and even as our panelists come up, we'll just let you know that, you know, we have practitioners on our page. You can see at the bottom of every page our website. We have practitioners, therapists, coaches, and spiritual directors that work with Harmony, that have been through our training and other trainings, that are really competent and can help you. And we also do we actually have an accredited training program to teach you the Harmony model with spiritual practices. So I want to introduce you to 3 of my students, and so they're coming up on the screen here, these gorgeous friends of mine. And some of the reason that I chose these friends is because right now, during this pandemic time, we have people that have their voices are coming to the forefront. We have friends that have been dismissed or undernourished, that have been a part of history all along, have been a part of the Imago Dei from day one, that now we want to say some of us may have had some kind of implicit bias. We may have resisted people because we saw them, their outward selves. You see that white guy on the couch over there, that white dude right there. He's part of that group right now that that many people, you know, even when they say white men in that power position, one of the reasons I invited my sweetie is because he's been one of those people that I have seen all my life empower others. That's been his desire in life, is to empower others. And so I thought, you know, my friend Danielle, who lives in Houston, just a stone's throw away from all of the pain that's been happening, and in the high school where George Floyd went to high school, and where she's heard ambulances going by, and she and I had conversations during this time about how she was harmonizing, how she was actually practicing harmony during this time of pandemic. And my friend, Dr. Phaedra Blocker, who is right there in Philadelphia, and oh my God, oh my goodness, she, you know, in her work in social justice and in the work of transformation, her PhD is in spiritual transformation, and she worked with New Baptist Covenant. You might be familiar with President, you know, Carter, and I want to say these people, these 3 individuals, I have seen them practicing harmony. Nobody gets there. It's like a continual practice, especially in times when we're triggered, when evil is happening, when racism is happening, where we're not loving our neighbor as ourselves, where we've been marginalized and dismissed. And so I just want them to talk to you about their harmony practices right now, and to give you a real story, a real-time story about what's happening. So I'm going to introduce Danielle first. She is a 1-4-7, so dominant in style 1, accessing the heart of the 4 and the intellect of the 7. And how's that helping these days, Danielle, with living so close to all of the pain in our world, in your body and in your neighborhood?
Oh, I took a deep breath even as you were talking, because, you know, I did go to the same high school as George Floyd. I feel a deep connection and a kinship with Breonna Taylor. And, you know, Houston at one point was kind of the global focus of the Black Lives Matter protests. And I'm the executive director for the Heinz Center for Spirituality. And there was actually a standoff between protesters and police on the same block as our building. And so, not even just from a personal and home front standpoint, but even from a vocational standpoint, I'm watching all of this play out, and I'm feeling a little powerless in terms of how I can actually make a change. And I also want to just show you real quick. This is my book from our certification. And like, as you can see, I have scribbled so furiously in the margins and in my journal, because I have really been able to discover a sense of serenity, by using my head, heart, and gut mantra. So I just want to thank you for your teaching and for taking the time to impart that to me and certify me to teach it as well.
Wow. Yeah, and tell me, as a gut type, what even happens in your body, and is there even a specific story for you these days?
Yeah. So, what when we learned that the global pandemic had reached Houston, this was in early March. Immediately, I made the decision as the executive director to pivot all of our on-site operations to virtual operations so that we could maintain the health and safety of our staff, our community members, our teachers, and our friends. And so I started to basically just turn all of our offerings into these virtual offerings via Zoom, the way we are now. One particular offering that we were executing at the time, which was bringing a lot of people a lot of relief, was that we had a song and story concert series where local artists would share not just their local original music, but the stories behind what they were writing and why. And I would lead these meditations, and artists would meditate with their audiences, and we would create this corporate meditation together with our hopes and dreams. And it was just a beautiful thing that would become an improvisational song that we would sing together. Well, one of these concerts, we experienced as a Zoom bombing, and the hacker took over our computers. And during the song that the artist was playing, the hacker took over our computer and played "I Don't Like N-Words" over and over again, completely taking over our concert experience. And it was horrible. I mean, I immediately ended the meeting and, sent all the new link details to the group, and we all got back online, and we just had to meditate and breathe together to be able to regroup. But I can tell you, as a one, that anger, that passion of the anger was rocking within me like angry waves crashing against the shore. And that night, I had to recover. I had to engage my head, heart, and gut mantra in order to do something with the energy that was just like a drum, a drum in the wind, trying to get out of my body. And so I engaged my head, heart, and gut mantra. And my head, heart, and gut mantra is to joyfully, creatively reform. And so I go to
first.
I go to my seven head first, and I do things that bring me joy. I write out what brings me joy. I do things that bring me joy. And then I go to my four heart, and I respect my emotions, and I respect my feelings, and I respect my sadness. And I creatively give myself an outlet. So I've been coloring mandalas, right? I keep my colors very close, and just give myself space to joyfully, creatively reform. And then I get ideas for how I can respect my anger and understand the boundaries that have been crossed, and understand my role in creating structures and events and opportunities for those boundaries, those human rights, to be supported and to be nurtured and to be protected going forward. And so having that head, heart, and gut mantra, it really helps me to get unstuck when I just want to scream. And sometimes I just give myself permission to scream. But using my head, heart, gut mantra, and breathing through those spaces, and giving myself ways to activate those spaces through action, really helps me to settle down. It helps my nervous system to regulate. And it gives me new ideas for how to write, how to plan, how to strategically and how to curatorially direct, and how to help my clients and help the groups that I train. It gives me a lot of inspiration and creativity. And so here I am calling forward my holy idea of what would be just perfect, right? And then my virtue of serenity, my language changes, the tone changes, the softness comes in, and I start to move with a serenity because I know the end, that it's going to be okay. I know that all things work together for the good. And I'm a part and an agent and a co-creator of that good after I take myself through my head, heart, and gut mantra.
Wow. Wow. So let me back up just a little bit because okay, we could feed on that for a little while. Couldn't we? Everybody get your color, your crayons out, you know.
I have a blank mandala if you need one.
So what I wonder first, Danielle, is where do you notice in your body when you get hit? You're talking about this wave that comes. So let's go right to your gut space, your automatic experience in the world. What happens in your body when a severe, right? This is trauma. This is not little t trauma. This is capital T trauma to have that kind of Zoom bombing.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine what it's like to be you in that moment. You know, what is it like to you? What is it like to be you in your body in that moment? What happened? Tell me where you felt it in your body.
Well, I feel the energy like wind and waves. So you know how you're when you're at the beach and the winds are very high and the waves are proportional to the wind. And so I feel the wind of the assault kind of blow through me, and then the wave starts in my gut, and it really rolls like a surfer. It rolls up to my chest, and I feel like I'm on that wave. And so my action, my behavior, my response, I feel like I'm just riding this wave, right? And so it starts in my gut and then it moves all the way up, but it gets stuck right in here. And then it starts to feel like a propeller because it has nowhere to go.
Yeah, so let me say that I can even hear that in your body right now while you're describing it. It's in the tone of your voice, it's in the movement of your body. And then, you know, when you are choosing to go to your head first, you know, I wonder about that. I wonder, so even let's just breathe for a minute and even feel that wave that you could even so easily access in that moment, right? And so there's this, power that's happening here, this, even this movement. And so is going to your head actually calming that first? Can we try something?
Mm-hmm.
Can we even, as this, going right back to that wave, if you could take some breaths and maybe go into some heart math that we've talked about during training, where you begin to breathe into the heart space, just focusing your attention in the heart space, that beautiful four heart. And as you're accessing, allowing the reality of your creative heart to offer you some ease here. And maybe even in this heart space, something like the mandala, even experiencing the mandala right here in your heart space. And allowing that, like as the heart math people say, that, negativity sticks to us like Velcro, positivity slides off like Teflon. So we need something like 11 to 15 seconds right here in the heart, just to even see how we might regulate. There's still motion with a mandala. What's that feel like, Danielle?
It feels like I am noticing, and even if using the mandala as the metaphor, I'm filling in the spaces of how I feel, and that feels like I'm respecting myself. I'm respecting where there was disrespect. And I'm coloring it blue.
And why blue?
Because blue for me is a calming, serene, cooling, even a nurturing color.
Mm.
Um, Blue makes me happy.
Yeah, keep breathing in there. Keep receiving that.
The
That
different tones
respect.
of
True
blue.
blue, like some true blue respect for yourself.
Respect for my feelings and feeling the little girl and me say that was so mean.
Mm.
That was unnecessarily mean. You know.
And can you stay with that little girl right
Yeah.
there and give the gift of the heart? That little girl that's allowed to say that is so mean.
I mean, she's right.
She
It,
is so right. And maybe even place your hand on your heart
mhm.
and offer yourself even some. That is so right. That is so right. And if you were then to even engage this brilliant intellect of yours with a new way of coloring in the lines with blue,
Mhm.
and just maybe even breathing in a way that feels like maybe down from the top of your head, like your mantra, down into your heart, into your gut, just allowing this to be the movement. Is there anything that you're curious about, that you wonder about, that this moment with both your anger and your heart might be offering you as an adventurous way, a, you know, a way to imagine and envision?
Well, the immediate thing that I do for her is to give her through her senses what would make her happy right now. You know, what would make you feel loved and joyful right now? And so I give her the things that she wants. I'll let her watch what she wants to watch. I let her eat what she wants to eat. I let her lay down if she wants to lay down. I let her play if she wants to play. So I give her, the things that would lift her spirits, so that she can feel a sense of nurturing and, you know, a sense of connectedness that her wounds are seen and that, I care about her.
Hmm. So I'm just even breathing in your harmony right here because I hear tenderness.
Mhm.
I hear, your brilliant intellect in giving it in a very clearly scheduled way. She can have that and she can go here and, even the gift of more.
That's
And,
that seven child that I'm nurturing.
mhm.
Got it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Danielle. Stay with us here. Yeah, beautiful.
You.
147 harmony. Looks good on you and it's coming out on us.
Thank you.
Yeah, and now our 369, our beautiful exemplar of this nine that is the grandfather of multicultural grandsons who have been called the N-word, have been told you have the skin of slaves. The white man that's been told your wife is Jezebel. Why is she preaching and teaching? Don't you know what the Bible says? This white man that's been told that white men use their power. How have some triggering times happened for you, Scott? Do you have a particular moment you'd like to tell us about here?
Well, you forgot that white men can't jump. I've always thought I could. Um,
You
yeah,
jump,
uh,
baby. I've seen you.
so many, so many thoughts during the whole COVID pandemic that we're dealing with, and then the racial unease that has been going on. One story that came to mind when you posed this question to us on the panel is I was reminded of. Um, so I'm on an executive board, which Clare is actually the director of this executive board. It's a state executive board for an anti-human trafficking task force. And there's about 130 different agencies, just a beautiful cross-pollination of different agencies across the state, including everything from certainly some faith-based organizations, but law enforcement, FBI, ICE has representatives there, the prison system has representatives, social work agencies from across the state, foster care agencies, just pretty much the gamut of helping professionals. There's a lot of different representation and a lot of diversity in the representation. And so shortly, our executive board here in Michigan, which may not be the same for every state that's represented here at the conference or even other countries, but here in Michigan, our restrictions came pretty fast and pretty clear, and still have been holding. So things like large group meetings immediately were shut down here, just to try not to spread the virus by our governor. So, you know, that caused us to go virtual with pretty much everything. And certainly our executive board started meeting virtually. And then what happened with George Floyd, when that occurred, there became this intense need for some real strong, honest conversation at a whole different level. I mean, conversations that we've had along the way regarding how to honor and respect one another and how to be with one another. As diverse as this group is, we seem to do pretty well at honoring and respecting one another, but it just took it up to a whole different level. And we knew we needed to have a pretty raw, or maybe several pretty raw, honest conversations around things like race. So our executive board is a wonderful group. Another group that's very diverse. We have a chief of police that's Black. He's a wonderful chief of police in Lansing, our state capital. And we have some organizations that house trafficking victims. They have representation. We have some survivors. We have a professor from Michigan State University. Anyway, law enforcement's represented. It's a great group. Going into the meeting, which we specifically were going to be talking about how we could be more honoring and effective when it came to just the way we presented as an organization when it came to race. You could sense tension, which for me is a 9. Even though that group, we really have done well. We've been working together for quite a while. You could just sense a whole different level of tension. So as a 9, my initial feel on that is, as important as this conversation is, I would rather not experience the conflict. But at the same time, knowing this is one of those places where conflict is going to be really, if it comes up, it's really important and really needed, and we just need to hold it. One of the things I know as a 9 is I'll go to conflict in order to get back to peace. So I think through these kinds of conversations, the way that you get to peace is you have to go into the conflict, and you have to hear things that are true even about you that you know, you'd rather maybe not hear, but it's important to hear. So going into this one meeting in particular, so talking about living into harmony, I remember intentionally thinking to myself, all right, I want to bring my best self to the conversation. So as you said, Claire, as a white male, I know going into the conversation, there's only one other white male on our board. And I intentionally thought, I am going to speak last. I'm going to step back and honor everyone else's voice first. Now, most of the meetings that I'm in, even though I'm a 9, most of the meetings I'm in, just because of my responsibilities, it's my responsibility to speak, kind of lead the meeting, be in the forefront. But I thought, I think that I need to move to my 9 space. just try to be a peaceful presence no matter how this conversation goes. And I need to speak last. And I was trying to be cognizant of just what I represented in the conversation. So I moved into my 9 to move into the second thing I thought was, because I thought, this is what I thought, peaceful teams influence. And at the end of the day, our organization just wants to be a wonderful influence for our state. And it's a secular group. It's not necessarily a faith group at all. We certainly have people of faith, including myself, but we just want to be a good influence for the state and in the anti-trafficking movement. So peaceful teams influence. So then my dismissed part of my harmony most regularly is 6. I was kind of raised in a way that just not a lot of clarifying questions. Certainly no, we were kind of taught in the house I grew up in to not have a good, healthy fear. So I thought I'm going to move to this teamster place of listening, asking good clarifying questions, being a faithful presence in the meeting, just trying to hold and honor whatever was said. So I was listening with the intent of I want to be able to ask good questions, not only good questions for myself, but good questions. Now that to some people that may sound like nothing, but for a 9, for this 9 at times, those questions create conflict. So I was mindful of that. And then moving to my 3, I just thought, what can I do besides just talk when I offer what I need to offer, or what can we do? And what can we do to put this into action? So just trying to bring a peaceful team's influence and being mindful of that in that conversation.
Let me stop you.
Let me just say, by the time that meeting was over, I thought it was one of the most amazing conversations. I've been in a lot of conversations during the last several months around these things. That was one of the most remarkable conversations that I've experienced.
Yeah, and I want to know something about you, because you talked about all the people in the room. You gave us such a great way to see a 9, this team, and here's who's there, and they're all awesome, and all of that. And so I just want you for a moment to take a breath and remember yourself, and remember why it was a good conversation. Where did you, just in a word or a phrase, where did you engage your heart and come alive there with effect? What word did you speak? Or what way did you lean in and connect that you felt your heart come alive?
Well, you mentioned our grandson. When I did mention our grandson at the beginning of my comments, and I felt the goodness of just feeling the support of everyone on the board, just by sharing about our grandson's a little bit about his experience.
So sharing the pain there. So just breathe right into your heart for a minute, Scott, and remember the way that your heart was engaged, that it was, you were showing up in the room emotionally. You were bringing the pain of your grandson's story, and you were there. You were fully there. And just remember that for a minute. Just breathe here in and around your heart. And then I wonder if you could just say your head, heart, gut, motion mantra for us while you're breathing.
Peaceful teams influence.
Yeah. and just feel the goodness of that. Peaceful teams influencing. Just feel the goodness that not just your body being in the room, but your heart being present. Your ability to bring all of you there, all of you. You showed up fully. I love what you said. You didn't just want to talk, you wanted to do something. That great book that the head of our roundtable talks about is um, uh, don't just speak up, do something. It's something like that. And there you were. And so just breathe in the goodness of that, Scott, that reality of being in harmony, that you weren't just a peaceful presence because you disappeared and became sacred backdrop, but because you were fully engaged emotionally and intellectually and physically. Thank you. Thank you so much. Our 369, starting with the 9. And Phaedra, beautiful Phaedra, tell us, you start as dominant in style 5, and you're a professor, and you have a brilliant intellect, and you're always learning something. You're always teaching me something. And I wonder what it's like to be you right now. And living in Philadelphia in the online spaces, what's it like to be you? And tell me how these days are calling for you to come out of your type, just your brilliant 5 that could write a thesis about it or read 12 books about it, right? What is happening with harmony for you?
For me, and my mantra has become, and it shifted a little bit over time. I would definitely describe it these days as nurture active wisdom.
Mm.
And I think some of that shift has come from the past couple of years and the work I was doing with New Baptist Covenant. And so I was engaging things in a bit of a different way. In the midst of this pandemic, so my introverted soul is quite happy to stay home, for the record. I do miss hugging people, but other than that, I'm good. But it's where I'm experiencing a sense of harmony in the midst of that is it's really this whole situation, this whole environment that we're in, this age between the pandemic of coronavirus, as Reverend Mark Taylor says, and the twin ongoing pandemic of racism, um, has called me to think about what it means to be active. Knowing who I am, knowing my wiring as an introvert, knowing my 5-ness that likes to deep dive down rabbit holes and that sort of thing. So I have um, found myself not so much in terms of breath prayer, but just in terms of awareness of how am I touching on those various parts of me. And you'd asked us originally for an example of something that happened during the pandemic where we had to access that harmony. For me, it was an experience with a student. So the pandemic, the shutdown part of the pandemic, so around early March, for us happened kind of mid-semester. I had just come back from a conference and from speaking and the speaking engagement, and then like 2 days later, everything was shut down. Events I was supposed to go to were gone, but I was teaching, and it was an on-ground class. We had done some things online, so that was not unfamiliar. And so I was teaching through. We just moved everything online. And one of my students, as we were ending class one day, asked if we could stay on together for a little while longer, and shared that because of what had happened, because of everything shutting down, and they were here studying they lived abroad, were here studying. They were having problems finding consistent quality Wi-Fi connections because they did not. The student was used to using the one at school. They didn't live on campus, but they were used to using, going to the library and doing their work there. But also, this happened to be in the first few weeks where people were panic shopping and clearing out grocery stores and any kind of store that had any kind of supply. And the thing that really, I guess, where my two just kind of leapt into action was the student said, we're having problems finding groceries to buy. And we're kind of down to, just these few basic things, and we're not even sure what to do. And that may sound weird, but if you are new to a country, let alone a city, and you don't know what the way that things work, and you only know kind of your immediate area and your campus, you don't know what's around. You don't know how far you would have to go. And so, and you know, this young person's probably could easily be my son, is young enough to be my son. So the mother in me is like, okay, no, this cannot stand. It's and so as I thought about it later, as I thought about, what example I could give, I realized that my my 5, 2, and 8 really just immediately coalesced. And I was immediately, first of all, talking the student through, okay, we can fix some of this. This is going to be okay. Just trying to encourage, because he was getting really discouraged. And so there was that part of kind of caring emotionally for and pastorally, because that's who I am, for this young man. But also, the 5 was immediately gathering information and saying, here is where, here's what's available, because I knew a lot of spaces in and around Philly were providing free groceries to people because things had just shut down, and stores were clear out, that sort of thing. So really harnessing kind of the information piece. But also I felt my 8 kind of step in gear in terms of advocacy, because I really began, like, I raised questions, not only with our university. I teach in a seminary which is embedded in a university, and they were doing a lot. So this is not a critique of them at all. They were doing a lot to help students get situated in light of the shutdown and to get home, or if they had to stay on campus, that sort of thing. But I did start raise the question. Okay, so what happens with students who aren't living on campus and aren't trapped on campus? How are we, connecting with them? And also found myself really going to my network of friends and acquaintances, many of whom are pastors, and using my social media platforms to say, hey, here's another population of folks we need to be thinking about, that need to not get lost because they don't fit into the traditional thing of just trying to get somebody's kid home from their campus, or just trying to make sure that groceries are available. There are folks in our communities that don't know this because it's not their framework. So that for me was kind of an example that I realized where all of the, all of my superpowers kind of came together for a moment, and kind of worked. Yeah, so that's what it's like. And so I've been really trying to do that, trying to focus on the nurturing of myself. I love what Danielle said about, giving myself permission, and that's what I was saying to our students and to other folks that I kind of connect with, is this really is a time where you have to give yourself permission to just be, whatever that is in the moment. And so I had to include myself in that, and realized, that while my 5 had brief fantasies of getting all this productive stuff done because I was locked up in my house, listening to my body
Mm,
say, no, you're tired. The stress of this,
mhm.
the emotional stress of this, the mental stress. And this was even before um, some of the George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor and Rashad. This is kind of even before that really jumped off. And so the need to remember to listen to my body. What does my body need? And I've been doing the same thing, Danielle. Like, okay, do we need a nap right now? Okay, we're just gonna put everything down, and it's time for us to take a nap. And those emails can wait, and that writing can wait,
Yeah, and
and
let me
you
highlight
just need a cup of
something.
tea.
Yeah, yeah, and let me highlight something I heard you say that was really similar to Scott, and we kind of went right past it. But you talked about this young person was like your son, like this is a child that I it's like a son, and feeling that activation to nurture here, just breathing right into that beauty of you, Phaedra, the beauty of your heart, the nurturer. And even when you're saying Brianna's name and you're going through the list, I've watched your social media platform and I know that you even led a lament. And I know that your heart has been engaged, not just as a brilliant thinker, but as one that would weep and one that would take your body out there into the world and say, I'm showing up for this as my full self. And I just want to breathe for a minute and receive you, the gift of you as a whole and holy person, as a person that's a 5 who did not run from the emotional the emotional connection of that beautiful 2 helper that was not going to go away quietly when there were young people that needed help. That mother heart of God that came right up and out for that student and for Brianna and for all of those that you've named. So I just want to breathe in the grace of a 5 that is a nurturer. I want to breathe in the grace of a 5 that is an activist, like an 8, and engaging and honoring all 3 centers of intelligence and not getting on an edge, but being whole and holy. And so breathing in the grace of this moment and noticing even things sometimes we just kind of get by our purview, just go right there and breathe right in and around your heart, Phaedra. And this love that was given from you to him to others and back. Arrhenius said, the glory of God is human beings fully alive. I'm pretty sure he said man, but we know if he was alive today, he would have said human beings. So the glory of God is human beings fully alive. And this head, heart, and gut action really can give us a way to make love of oneself, to respect oneself, to honor oneself, to love oneself, to remember ourselves and how we show up in the world. It matters right now. This harmony piece matters. I'm sure you probably have questions for Danielle and Scott and Phaedra. And while the time won't completely allow us here, what I want to say is you just click on their pictures on the website and maybe you can even connect with them. It's an important time to ask a question, meet with a spiritual director, get together with an Enneagram consultant, meet with a chaplain, meet with a coach, meet with your therapist, because as I said earlier, when Orion sent me this thing about Corona Coaster, you can be centered 1 minute and the whole thing can go off the rails the next minute. And you can think you're nuts. You are not nuts. We are here. And harmony, I love when Jesus said, if I could just get 2 of you to agree on anything, There's nothing impossible for you. And I think, how can you get two people to agree when most of us can't agree IQ, EQ, and GQ? We're not in harmony here. We're not reconciled here. So how do I reconcile here if I'm all stuck up in my type? If I'm fighting with people on social media in ways that are disrespectful and unloving? How can I possibly be reconciled out here, even if people won't, in fact, reconcile is probably the wrong word, but bring your own reconciled self to the table, right? And so that in attachment theory, and I'm glad Dr. Wagner's doing some work on this, the non-anxious presence can change a family system. The non-anxious presence can change a political system. Why do we think Dr. King had such power? He was a non-anxious presence. He had the hearts of people who were wanting to reconcile. He had the minds of people who were wanting to reconcile. Why? Because he really did engage his intellect and his heart and his body instincts in ways that worked for the good of humankind. So I want to say, my friends, we need harmony. Masks, no masks, right? We've got so much division happening right now that the only way there is hope for the world is the prayer that Jesus prayed, that they would be one. You know, even as the Father and I are one. You know, maybe you remember this icon that I put up in the beginning, this deference, this way of respecting and turning it over. You know, the Father says, whatever my Son says, do that. The Son says, I don't do anything unless the Father tells me. And Jesus says, I'm sending the Spirit, and the Spirit will guide you into all truth. There's something about deferring to all three centers of your intelligence that will give you a harmonious way to be in the world. And so what do we have? We have 5 more minutes here. And were there any questions for anybody that you want to pull up for us right now? So Lori's saying no questions right now, but I want to just say, if you could offer just a moment of your own presence here. So let's just all take a breath. Know that we have folks available for you, practitioners in all the fields, post-conference, but for right now, we just say, go ahead and wherever you are, feel your feet on the ground. Feel your body, where your body is touching the chair. Maybe you want to open your hands as a way of being open and receptive. Or maybe you want to close your hands because you're always out here in the world and you need to just bring your energy right inside. Maybe you want to put your hands on your heart and just feel your breath coming in. Or if you've been through real difficulty like we have, or I really do believe all of us have experienced trauma in this time, you can pray this kind of prayer that trauma therapists teach, which is the butterfly hug. And you connect your thumbs and place your thumbs right under your clavicle and just begin to tap in a way, the beat you like. It might be a strong beat. It might be gentle. You can even do it on your arms if you don't want to do it on your chest, just this way of offering yourself some care here for what you've been through while you're breathing. You've been through a lot, friends. All of us on this conference have been through a lot. Small t trauma, capital T trauma. And just offer yourself some care here. And maybe in your breathing, maybe you even want to move your hands down to your lap and begin the tapping on your lap. You might find it strong in the beginning and getting more gentle as time goes on. And maybe you can attach a prayer to your breath. Just a 3-word prayer, not wordy. Maybe just one word, it's okay. If you have a head, heart, gut, motion mantra or a breath prayer for all three centers of intelligence, just begin to pat and breathe and pray that prayer as you feel so inclined. And then wherever you are, maybe you could stand and just move your feet a little bit. Feel your feet on the ground, knowing that your feet have taken you many places. If you can't stand, that's okay. But feel your feet on the ground. Your feet have taken you so many places. Feet have taken you to good places, and just allow the goodness of your feet to be felt here, that this has been a choice for you to be here now. Maybe you want to rock back and forth from your heels to your toes. You can do that, or just move your feet around a little bit, getting some circulation going. And then maybe you want to lift up your hands. You don't have to, but I'm going to lift my hands up right now because I need to, and open up to what is more. I'm actually placing my feet in a position that some call mountain pose, and I'm feeling the strength of my feet and my hands in the air, opening up to the wider expanse. And then I'm going to actually bend down and just touch the earth, or wherever you want to go, and scoop up the goodness of this room, and maybe come back down and then come up again, and then maybe bring your hands right here to the center of your chest in this prayer space. And one more time, from the floor all the way up to the ceiling, joining your hands to your heart, and welcome all that is you in your breath right here. IQ, EQ, GQ, the harmony in which you've been made in the Imago Dei. May peace be with you and come through you, my friends. Thank you, Danielle, Scott, and Phaedra. Love you. Scott's on the floor. Come back up, Scott, and say goodbye.
Thank you so much, Claire, for your teaching and for this opportunity to share. I really appreciate it, and I feel really good.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't even need to get out of the chair for that to feel good.
All right. Beautiful. Beautiful.